Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you were able to install Comfy and Grasshopper from my previous video. In today's video, we will be looking at the basics of these two tools. So let's just get right into it. So first thing is when you open Comfy, just double click on it and the tool should open. A tip, let's say you have two screens, always start Comfy on the screen that you want to work with. If the resolution of the two screens is different, you will see the wires and nodes not connected to each other, which might not look nice, right? So I'm going to split this and take it into the left side. And then I'm going to start Rhino so that we can launch Grasshopper. Okay, so here I have started Rhino. Now, if you know from my previous video, the way to call out Grasshopper is either you click on this bug or you type Grasshopper here and press enter and Grasshopper will start. Right? The starting time of Grasshopper depends on how many plugins you have. Now, when you start Grasshopper, you will see this examples folder. If you want, you can click on it. Right now, we will close it. Then we will go to file and either you can press Ctrl N on your keyboard or just say new document. Right? I'm going to take this Rhino viewport on my different screen. So we can have only Grasshopper and Comfy side by side. Right? So this is how these two tools look like. One on the right hand side is Grasshopper, on the left hand side is Comfy, right? Now both, when you start it for the first time, this is how it look like. To zoom in and out is basic your mouse scroll wheel. In Grasshopper, to select everything or anything, you can use your left mouse click, and to pan in Grasshopper, you can use your right mouse click. Now similarly in Comfy, let me just take some node, right? For example, let me just take load checkpoint model, right? Just to see how it looks like, right? And you see similar, both of them have a grid as well. Here the grid is much smaller. Here the grid is much bigger, right? Now similarly in Comfy as well, you can zoom in and zoom out in your mouse wheel using your mouse wheel. But to pan, you just have to use your left mouse click, right? And when you use a right mouse click, you will get some other controls, which we will see later on, right? And right now they don't look really same. So what I did was I installed a plugin called Moonlight inside of Grasshopper so that they will look similar. And I will show you how to install this plugin. You don't need to really worry about it right now. Okay, so that looks better, right? Both of them kind of look visually similar, right? Now inside of Comfy, you can also change the way it looks like. And to do that, what you have to do, you can go to the settings at the bottom left hand corner of your screen. If you click on settings in Comfy, then you can go to appearance, and here you, in the color palette, you can select however you like to use, right? Right now this is a default version. Let's say I use light. Now it becomes like this white color. It's really difficult to work with. Or you can use any one that you like. You know, there are different options. You know, there is milk white, there is opsian dark, which I think also looks nice. So you can choose depending on your preference, whatever you like, right? I'm going to keep it to dark default and I'm going to close it. So that's about the appearance between these two. They kind of look very, very similar. They have a grid background and you can change the appearance. With Grasshopper, you can use a Moonlight plugin, and for Comfy, you can just go to the settings and you can change the appearance from here. Now let's talk about interface of these two tools, which I think is quite very, very similar to one another. Okay. What I will do is I will just take one example file. For example, in Grasshopper, you can go to help tutorial file. Let's say I take the second one, right? Just to see how it looks like. And in Comfy, what you can do is you can click on these three dots. You can go to workflow. You can say browse templates, and you have a lot of templates here, right? I'm just going to take the first one, which is image generation, right? Just to see how it looks like, you know. One key thing with both of these tools is that if you are interested in reading a lot, you will find this much easier to learn, right? Because each of these nodes, you just have to read and connect. There is no like rocket science with it. You just have to read and understand what goes where, and they work. At first glance, it looks a little bit intimidating. What are these wires and why are we using this? But as you keep on working, you will understand how intuitive the overall process is. So now let's look at what these all buttons and everything is located. First, let's go to Grasshopper, which is a little bit simpler, right? So in Grasshopper, you have your same functions at the top. This snapping gecko and Elephant is the plugin that I have installed. We will see how to install plugins like I said. So in the file, you will see how to create a new document, open a document, export it into high resolution. You can export script as an images, or you can save it as a .grasshopper file, right? Then in edit, you have cut, paste. Most of these are very, very similar to any other, Microsoft Word or any simple tools. Now, when you come below it, so for example, if you come one step below, which shows these, right? In your case, it will be params, then it will be math, it will be set, vector, curve, surface, and so on and so forth, right? In Grasshopper, things are arranged based on geometry, right? Because it works with units like inches, feet, millimeter, centimeter. So its units or its components have been segregated with respect to the geometry type. For example, if you want something to draw a curve, all the curve component are here. If you want to draw a surface or manipulate a surface, all surface components are found here. If you want to draw something like to mesh, all of them are here, right? And you will see Mac still display, and there should be Kangaroo 2, which is a plugin developed by Daniel Piker. The rest, all these AA, BB, CC that you see are the plugins that I have installed. And you don't have to install all of them. We will see which are necessary as we go on with these particular videos, right? Let's say you want to take any particular component, right? So for example, let's say the first one is basically something called as params. Right now, let's not get into details of understanding what a component is, right? We will only see how to work with them. So if I go to params, now in params, they have their own separate sub tab, right? For example, you have geometry. Now this will allow you to take or reference any geometry from either Rhino or from Grasshopper itself, right? For example, if I take circle, so you have a component designed or understanding for circle, right? And if you hover your mouse, it says contains a collection of circles. Right now, we have no idea what this is, and that is totally fine. Right now, we don't need to do any of it, right? I'm only showing you where these components are located. Then some things to on, right? So if you go to something called as display in Grasshopper, I want you to on the first two, which says draw icons, then draw fancy wires, and the third one as well, if you want, which says draw full names, right? What these three does is that first one, for example, if I don't say draw icons, you will see, I will see the name of the component, right? If I click on draw icons, then I will see the icon of the component. Now, if you say draw fancy wires, this kind of goes in little bit of data trees, but will not go there. And when I say draw full names, for example, if I take some other component, let's say I take something like this, right? Now what happens here is that if I don't on it, don't say draw full names, you will see only C, N, K, P, T, T, which I sometimes don't know what it is. So I like to always on this as well, which is draw full names. So I see what is the full thing that has to be connected, right? So you can go to display on these three things, draw icons, draw fancy wires, and draw full names. But you might be wondering, if I do this, how will I know what is the name of the component? So what I do generally, I have installed a plugin called bifocals. So if I type here and say bifocals, this is kind of the plugin which has the spectacles on it. What this plugin does, it shows you the name of the component, right? So generally that's what I do. So when I am learning anything new, I keep this into draw icon and I keep the name of it on top of it. So I know both, if there is something like what is the icon versus what is the name of the component, right? Then going to display again. So you can go down. With this we will see later on the way geometry looks like. Right now you can go down and you can on all of these, right? Raven UI you might not see because it's an external plugin which I have installed. But if you go to display, canvas widgets, you can on compass, on align, Markov, profiler, and message balloons. And we will see each of these in detail what it means, right? Just to give you a glimpse of what a couple of them means, right? For example, message balloon. If I don't on, you see there was a message here, it goes away, right? So sometimes what happens in Grasshopper is that you might come across an error, right? And while the component will tell you, it's always easy to click on this message and say what is the error about, right? If I click on here, it says fail to collect data. It's fine. Right now we don't need to do. So you got to on these things and then we will see where to use them, right? Now, With Profiler, what this does, it tells you which plugin takes how much data, right? For example, right now, none of these are taking a lot of, for example, bifocals, you see it says 6 milliseconds, right? This MS is 6 milliseconds. If I double click on it, it says 35%. So of my entire total script, bifocals is taking 35% of my computing power in this particular script, right? And if I double click on it, 6 milliseconds means it is taking 6 milliseconds for it to run. Now this will depend on the computer configuration that you have. Some of you might not even see this if you have a higher configuration than mine. Some of you might see this as, let's say, 12 milliseconds if you have a lower configuration than mine. But this is important, let's say, when you have a very long script to understand, because sometimes a component takes 1 or 2 minutes to run. So you can close that component, or you can pause for it from working, and then once all the geometry setup is done, you can then run it. So this profiler comes in handy, right? So this is mostly about Grasshopper, right? Each has its sub tab related to geometry, and you can take, and the units come from Rhino, which could be millimeters, centimeter, feet and inches, and so on and so forth, right? So that's mostly what the interface looks like. Now coming back to Comfy, the interface is little kind of similar only. But in this case, you will see something like these which I have installed, right? Which shows you how much CPU you have, how much RAM is available, how much GPU is available, what is the VRAM available, and what is the temperature of my computer, right? It's right now running really high because a lot of things are running, and I hope I don't get, my computer doesn't freeze, but it's fine, right? So this why I installed, it's kind of similar to the Profiler tab in Grasshopper, where it shows you what is working and how much data is your computer consuming. This kind of does the same, and you will know if it is something you want to pause and then close and open again, right? This does not come pre-installed. There is a plugin for this in Comfy, which is called Chris Tools, right? So if I go to manager, if I go to custom node manager, and if I type CRYST, so this one, Chris Tools, it says with this suite, you can see the resources, monitor, progress bar, and time elapsed metadata, and compare between two images, right? So this Chris Tools allow you to see that, which is what I was telling about. We will see how to install all of this. All I'm trying to right now tell you is the similarities between Grasshopper and Comfy, okay? Now, going to the left-hand side, the first one is Q, which basically will show you whatever image you generate, it will generate here. No matter how many your images you generate, it will generate here in this Q tab. Let's say, for example, you don't save the images, you just want to preview them. All of them will be stacked here. The second one is called node library. Okay, it will tell you whatever nodes you have installed. For example, let's say I've installed Chris Tools, right? So it will show me inside Chris Tool what all is present. This is very similar to the sub tab in Grasshopper, where it was depending on the geometry. Here it kind of depends on the plugin that you installed and how it has been categorized, right? For example, if you go to ControlNet, right? Now I have installed a couple of ControlNet. It will show me what all ControlNets I have installed. Then the next one is called model library. Now this connects to the model. Remember last time where we went to models where we installed in the checkpoint, right? So this all shows you whatever models are available. For example, if I click on checkpoint, you will see I have 5 models installed, which is Stable Diffusion 1.5. There is a Flux model. There is Realistic Vision. There is Excel, right? So I will show you how to install all of these. You don't have to worry right now. Oh, we need to install all this. No, don't worry about any of it. It will tell you how many LoRa's you have. I have no right now. So if I click, it says 0, right? But it will show you what all is available on your computer. Then the next one is workflows. So for example, let's say you save a particular workflow that you type. For example, let's say this is a default workflow, right? For example, if I save this, so if I click here, if I go to workflow, if I say save, right? Control S, it will ask me what do you want it to name. Let's say I say default test, and then I say confirm. Now here you see that workflow comes in. Now anytime you open Comfy, you can simply drag this workflow and you will see that this particular entire workflow has come here. So this is really good to save workflows, and anytime you open, like I said, it will be there. The next one is something called as node map, right? Now what this does, it shows you what all components are there, right? nodes are there. In Grasshopper, we call these as components, but in Comfy, we call these as nodes, right? So I might sometimes interchange the words, but they both mean the same, right? So here it is showing me what all I have, right? So I have something, if I double click on it, it will go there, right? If I double click on, let's say, empty latent image, it will show there. So it is showing me what is there in the entire script. And if I, let's say, want to off it, I can just click on it, and then this will off that particular node, right? Let me on it again. If I double click on save image, so this, see, it will show me where it is, and these all are here, and this will go on into a long list as you keep on evolving the script, right? So that's mostly all these 5 things. Then this moon that you see is just like dark and light, very, very simple. Then let's go to settings. One thing that I really like to do is change the wire, right? For example, if you go to light graph, if you scroll down, here it says graph, right? Right now I've kept it to straight. Generally, when you start first time, it will be spline. If you don't want to see those lines, at all, you can go with hidden. I like to keep it straight because then it's easier for me to visually see it. Otherwise, sometimes spline becomes into a spaghetti, right? So I try to keep it to straight. Apart from that, you can check all other things that are available here. I don't really touch much of these. I only changed the appearance sometimes depending on what I am working with, and I change the graph or the how it looks like, whether it's straight or spline. And depending on the plugins that you install, each of them will have their own separate settings, right? Then at the bottom, this will allow you to run things, right? So if you remember from the last time, if I just press on run, everything will start running and we will get the image. Besides this, there is this drop down arrow. If you click on it, sometimes it says run on instant, sometimes it says run on change. Now, instant means it will keep on running every time. On change means, let's say I change one particular word, right? Let's say instead of elevation, I make it view, then it will run. Instant, it is going to keep on running after iteration, 1 iteration, 2 iteration. Okay. Now this one tells you how many images you want, right? For example, if I increase this from 1, 2, 3, whatever number, it will give me so many images from 1, 2, 4, 8, and so on and so forth. Then coming to these tools, right? These ones that you see here, which are very simple. The first one allows you to zoom. If you, let's say, if you don't have a mouse with you, you can zoom in, zoom out. This will allow you to fit everything, fit entire thing to your script, to your screen. This will allow you to select different mode, whether you want to pan it or whether you want to just move it around, right? And then this will show the wires on and off, right? Which does not mean that the script is not working. It just doesn't allow you to see the wires, right? Sometimes that's helpful. Imagine you have a lot of components, right? For example, let's say I make something like this, right? Which is another famous way of working with Comfy, which I don't really like, but it's fine, right? Now, if I on wires, right, you see, I really don't know what's happening, right? So in that case, if you have made a script and you know what it works for, you don't really need to see wire, right? Let me put this back and let me on it, right? And then here manager, which we installed last time. And then this one, which will show you the log, right? Or the terminal. Basically, this is very important to read when you get an error. So if you go to terminal, right now I have not run anything, but it is showing me just fetching data. But sometimes what happens is that, let's say by mistake, you connect a SD model to HDXL model. In this case, this log and terminal is really helpful because then you can realize, okay, what was the actual error, right? So this you can see it from here. And then this last one, which will hide everything and you will get a very clean, simple interface, right? So that's mostly the interface of Comfy, where you can change the wire connection, you can change the way it looks. You need to, if you want to see this on top, you get to install Chris tools, which will show you how much computing power your computer is using, where are things saved, where are things located, what is the settings, and things like that. So that's mostly the interface with Comfy. With Grasshopper, each of them is located depending on the geometry. You can take that particular tab, you can zoom in, zoom out, and things like that. Both of them are very similar, right? That's why I think creating this kind of side-by-side comparison is really helpful in learning both of these tools. Now I'm going to close both of these and let's see how do we start installing, right? Because it's very important to know where the plugins and all get installed. So I'm going to close both Comfy and Grasshopper. Then you can open your Internet Explorer, whatever internet you're using, right? To install plugins for Grasshopper, you have to go to something called as Food for Rhino. Okay, so this one which says Food for Rhino, right? It's literally Food for Rhino. If you click here, now here you get to install different plugins, right? You have to log in first. You see, Kedar, I'm logged in here already to be able to install anything, right? For example, the plugin that I was talking about, which was bifocals. If I type enter, and this the first plugin which says bifocals. Okay, this one. Now sometimes with plugins you get two versions, one for Rhino and one for Grasshopper. You have to read here which is for what, right? So right now this says Grasshopper for Rhino 4 and 5 and it works. It doesn't really, it's not like it's not going to work for Rhino 8 or Rhino 7. It works, right? So it says bifocal GHA, bifocal installer, right? You can just use the GHA file because we don't really need to install it, right? So I can download this and it will start downloading, right? Let me keep it in desktop, right? Right now, let me save this as here, okay? And this downloads it. But this is not gone in the folder of Rhino and Grasshopper, right? Right now, we have just downloaded it. Let me show you the file. So this is the file that we downloaded, right? One thing to always check when you download any component or any plugin for Grasshopper, you have to right click always, go to properties and see if this is blocked or unblocked, right? If it is blocked, you will not be able to use that plugin even if you install it. So always, whenever you install any plugin for Grasshopper specifically, always right click, go to properties, go to security and click on unblock, say apply, okay. Then only you will be able to use it. Otherwise, you will not be able to use it, okay? And where do we install it? So if you open Grasshopper, you need to go to file, go to special folders, and then go to something called as component folder. When you click on it, this will open up. And here is all the things that I have installed so far, right? So here only I will be able to see somewhere bifocals. You see here, bifocals is installed. So each plugin kind of gets installed here. So now all you need to do is copy that file and paste it here, right? And that's it. And then you go to close and open Rhino and Grasshopper again, and you will see that plugin. Okay, it's very simple. Go to Food for Rhino, type the plugin, or you can search the plugin that you want. I don't know why this is in German right now. Maybe I need to make it English. Okay, so you can type the name of the plugin, whatever you want, and then simply download it. Right click, unblock it. Very important. Then you got to go to this folder, which is this one, which is in basically app data roaming Grasshopper libraries, and you have to paste it, right? So that's all it is for installing plugins in Grasshopper. Now, some of the plugins that I would really recommend is number one is bifocals that I told you. The second one is what we looked at, which is Moonlight, which allows you to get things in a dark mode, right? And it's also very simple. You just have to install, download it, cut it, and put it in that libraries folder. The third plugin that I would like to you to install is something called a Snapping Gecko. Snapping Gecko. What this allows you to do is basically snapping. Sometimes there is space, no space. Yeah, this one. Snapping Gecko, which basically allows you to snap things, as it says, right? It's quite simple, right? You see, this will allow you to align things. You get this alignment. Otherwise, it will not really snap, right? So this is really helpful for even aligning, and if you have OCD like me with things being aligned, this is really helpful, right? For instance, if I want to show you quickly, if I let's say move this, you see this red line. This is because of Snapping Gecko. It is telling me that, okay, you can snap it here. You can snap it to the top of this panel. You can snap this component to here. You can snap it here, and so on and so forth. So Snapping Gecko allows you to do that. Then the next plugin that I think is important is something called as Quick Connection. This one, right? What this plugin does, it will help you basically what it is doing right now, right? If you drag a wire from any component, it will give you potential candidates of what might be the next component, right? And this works with, if you have used Comfy, this works in Comfy, but it was not there in Grasshopper. So I was like, let me see if there is a plugin like that, and this exists. So with quick connection, for example, let's go back to Grasshopper. Now, when you install quick connection, you will see this icon here, right? You see this icon will be there. If you click on it, then only it will work. If you don't, it will not work, right? Now, let me click on it and then let me drag a wire from here. Now, you will see it will tell me these might be the potential candidates for my next workflow or my next component, right? Which I think is really helpful when you're starting out, because there are so many components, there are thousands and thousands of components. It's really exhausting and really intimidating when you want to learn Grasshopper. So this quick connection plugin is really helpful. So now you can see like, okay, these are my most available. What can I do with this? Okay, so that's with quick connection. Then there is another plugin which I like to use, which is called Pod Grasshopper button. I don't know if this will catch that. Yeah, this one. Okay, basically what this allows you, or what I use it, you will get these all buttons here in the Grasshopper interface. And if you read, it will show you what all each button is doing, right? So for the first one, it will allow you to see a toolbar where you want to keep. It will allow you to, whether you want to select wire, whether you don't want to select a wire, because in Grasshopper, you cannot really select wires, right? So this plugin allows you to do that. What I like to use this plugin for is to see what is happening in my Rhino workspace. So let me minimize this. Let's go back to Grasshopper, right? So if I click on this one, okay, I get to see there will be a floating window, and I generally like to keep Rhino viewport here. So I see, okay, what's happening. So this plugin allows you to do that, where you can take a screenshot, basically taking a screenshot of what's happening, not screenshot, but a view of what's happening in Rhino, and you can always keep it. So what I like to do is, I'm working, I like to keep this here somewhere in the corner, and let's say the script becomes too long, I always know what's happening in the Rhino viewport without me really giving it more space for it to need, right? So these are a couple of plugins that I think is really helpful. Like I said, you can install bifocals to get this. You can install snapping gecko to snap each of the components wherever you want. You get moonlight to get this in a dark version. Then you need to install quick connection so that you get different options when you want to connect. And lastly, you can install pod underscore gh underscore button. So then you will be able to get this viewport. So that's some of the plugins and how to install for Grasshopper. Now coming to Comfy, right? So most of the things you can install from Comfy Manager, apart from a lot of models, right? To install a lot of models, what you got to do, you got to go to this website called CivitAI, CIVIT, CivitAI. This one, which has like a hexagonal shaped logo. And you can search all the models, okay? I want to tell you already, there is a lot of NSFW content here, or 18 plus content. So please be careful the way you navigate the site. I generally like to keep it to PG, or you can give PG-13, but everything mostly is available here, right? Now, you can download a lot of models and LoRa's from here. So if I click on models right now, you will see this here, right? You see models, click on models. And then we can filter it depending upon the model that we really want to work with. It takes a lot of time to load this, but I think it's fine. So what I like to do is I like to go to filters. So let me select checkpoint model. Then I'm going to select SDXL, right? The difference between SD and SDXL is the images that they used to train the data. For instance, stable diffusion, or SD1 and 1.5 uses images of 512 by 512 resolution pixels, right? 512 by 512. SDXL, as the name says, is as XL, right? It is using 1024 by 1024 pixel resolution. That's why the image quality is going to be much more higher. We will later look at things like flux, things like high dream and things like that. Right now, let's work with SDXL for some time, get ourselves acquainted with it, and then we will go further. So I click on SDXL and then I see all of these models. Some of the models that I really like is this Juggernaut model. I don't like to download an architectural specific model, because what that does, it will only give you architecture and not anything else. For example, let's say you want to have architecture look situated in amazing scenery. It doesn't really work, right? And most of the model that I really work with is Real Vision, which is this. It says Real Vision XL version 5. I also like to work with version 4. You can use version 5, that's also completely fine, which came out in August 31st, 2024, right? But I really like this model. It is fast. It gives you output, because you have to also figure out with the Comfy is both the things, right? How much CPU and GPU it is using on my computer. While Flux gives me better results, I 100% agree, it will freeze my computer on a regular basis. So do I want that? Because it is constantly hogging on my CPU and GPU. I cannot work with anything else. But with HDXL, I get best of both the worlds. Things are better and also it's fast. So I generally like to use HDXL. And this model, which is RealViz XL version 5.0, in my opinion is really great. And what I like to do, I like to install a model with baked VAE. You'll see what VAE is later. But right now you can either download V5 baked VAE or V4 baked VAE. And I would like you to see all the images that it is showing, right? So you see it's doing good with humans, with animals, with this kind of fantastical or fantasy images. So always check the outputs that you are getting. That means that you can get these kind of images, right? So that's always a good way to look at it. And you can always upscale, right? This is the base model. We can always use face detailer. We can always use upscaler to get more profound faces or more profound architectural details, right? But this is with the base model, right? So I always like to see this. It takes couple of like 3-4 minutes, but once you really get a good model, you don't need to replace it, right? Previously, I would download all the models and I had around, like 300-400 GB of just model and I would test, but I would not see all of this. So later I started taking time, seeing what each model can do and then downloading. And from testing so many models, I really liked RealViz XL, V5 or V4. I also, like I said, like the Juggernaut model, which also is really good. Dream Shaper XL is also really good. So these 3 models I would really recommend, either for HD or you can go for HDXL. Right now we're working with HDXL, right? So these models, now when you install, for example, if I click here, right, it will say download 6 GB. But where do we download this, right? If I click on this, it will start downloading. You need to download it where your Comfy is installed. So go to C drive, go to Comfy, basically wherever Comfy is installed, go to models, then go to checkpoint, and you will install it here, right? So you already see XL RealViz is already installed here, and this is around 6.7 GB. So like I was telling in my last video, it takes a lot of data, right? For example, if you see this Flux Schnell and Flux Compact, these are like 20 GB and 11 GB and things like that. So model keeps on getting heavier and heavier, right? If you want to get better result. Right now, don't worry about it. You can only install RealViz, either version 4, version 5, both are good. It's 7 GB, so I think that should be fine. So that's where you install these models, right? Now, coming to other things that you have to install. So I'm going to open Comfy again. Okay. Now, if you want to install basically custom plugins or custom nodes, what you need to do in Comfy, you go to manager, right? There are other ways of doing it where you can specifically find on internet where that is and then paste in specific folder. It takes a lot of time. What I like to do is like I go to manager and then you can say custom nodes manager. And here you will see all the nodes that are available, right? Basically the custom nodes or plugins you can say in Grasshopper terminology, and you can install all of these, right? Some of the things that I would recommend is what we did last time, which is Comfy Manager. Then I would recommend Chris Tools, like I told you. And then I would recommend this particular plugin called RG3, which has like image comparer node, and it will allow you to sometimes off one part of the script, keep another part of script. So these 2-3 plugins I think are really mandatory in case of working faster with Comfy, and it's very simple to install. Just click on it. You can, let's say I want to install something else, right? Even this one is good, comfyui easy use. If I want to install it, I just click on install, it will be done, right? So click on install, and then Comfy will ask you if you want to refresh it, refresh Comfy, and it's fine. Let me install something to show you how it actually looks like. Okay, this comfyui in-paint node also is very good. So I click on install. It will ask me which version you want. I generally like to go to the latest version, right? And then you will see in the background, the log is kind of starting to open. It will start to download whatever things are needed, and it's done, right? And now it's telling me to restart it. So just click on restart, and then comfyui will restart, and that's it, right? But to install models, checkpoint models, you have to go to generativeai, because not many models are available here. But to install anything apart from it, you can directly do it from comfyui manager. So that's mostly the installation process of Grasshopper and Comfy. Where Grasshopper, you go to food for Rhino, you go to your libraries folder, you unblock it and you save it. With Comfy, you just go to generativeai, you go to your checkpoint folder and you save it, and that's it. Okay, so that's how you mostly install the plugins with both of these softwares. I hope I was clear with this. If you have any questions, always feel free to comment. This video has gone a bit long than what I expected it to be. But anyway, we looked at the interface, the appearance, what are the nodes to be installed, what are the plugins to be installed, and where do we get the checkpoint models, food for Rhino, and things like that. In the next video, we'll be looking at the details of how to connect nodes, what are color codings, how do we group things, and things like that, right? So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for your time. Please do like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.